Hey everyone, Nathan coming back at you with another Monotype video. Not quite a Showdown live like I was about to introduce it there. I've got some plans in mind because it's been a while since I've seen you all. Been a little while, missed your faces. And I've got a lot of ideas on what to finally talk about when we do our first Monotype fighting video here, because people have been requesting it for a long time. It's always been the bridesmaid, never the bride, always been second in the running for the voting. Finally, I couldn't delay it any longer. We are ready to talk about mono fighting today, and because I've been so long since I made a video, I've got a lot in mind for this video. It's gonna be a very extra video for me right now, but first things first, we want to make sure that we're on the same page right here. Let's talk about mono fighting in general. And I want to make sure that we, like, before I get into what I want to talk about, that we're on the same page. You know how mono fighting works, because it's not that difficult. You look at these 6 mons, and the first thing that's going to jump out to you is like, okay, those are 6 really strong Pokemon. Urshifu, Keldeo, Zapdos, Galar, Cobalion, Terrakion, Conkeldurr. These are fantastic Pokemon. If you were to count up the base stat totals for all these Pokemon combined, probably pushing 650 Pokemon, maybe 4K all told. Stat-wise, this is a strong group of Pokemon, all very fast, all very strong, and this isn't necessarily the team you need to use or should be using. This is a team that I built pretty recently when I was preparing for this video, and I've liked it quite a bit. We're going to talk about different options you have and different stuff like that, but the first most important thing is to talk about is going to be, let me move you up actually, these 3, because if we look at the viability rankings for mono fighting, we're gonna see that these 3 are in a class of their own. Very, very strong Pokemon, and I'm just gonna break it down quickly. First off on the list, I've been asked about this about a dozen times. Urshifu, who is currently being suspect tested. It's a bit of a bummer. People ask me what are my opinions on it. Should it be banned? Should it not? I am not too researched on the topic of Monotype bans. It's different from overuse because the idea of centralization is a little bit different. I don't really know what I'm talking about, but my basic thought on the topic is just that it sucks because Urshifu, it sucks, but it's probably necessary because Urshifu isn't only extremely important and extremely common on your mono dark teams. We already talked about that a little bit, why I think it's so essential. It needs to be on almost every team you build, but it's even more important, I'd say, on mono fighting because terrible matchups like mono ghost and, well, mono ghost isn't so terrible with Urshifu, but matchups like Ghost and Psychic, which would be awful otherwise, Urshifu makes manageable. A big part of playing against Mono Psychic as mono fighting, because surprisingly it isn't just a steamroll, is if you can take care of their Psychic Surge users, you can kind of win the game with Banded Sucker Punch right here. And in neutral matchups, Urshifu just destroys everything with a Banded Wicked Blow. Not much different from overuse in that sense. So it sucks. I think it's probably deserving to be banned. It just strikes me as way too much. But it's going to be a huge blow to a typing that I don't necessarily think is like overpowered by any means. I think it definitely needs the Urshifu, and it's really going to struggle otherwise. So it's unfortunate, probably needs to happen, but that's too bad. Terrakion, I'll actually talk about next here. Terrakion is kind of an obvious one as well. Similar to Mono Rock, it's just a really good Pokemon. Look at those attacking stats, look at that speed. I would make the argument that Rock Fighting is one of the, if not the best offensive types you can have in Pokemon. They really shore up each other's weaknesses really nicely. For starters, you want to spam Fighting type attacks as much as possible. Close Combat is a fantastic stab attack. But if a Flying type's going to come in, great. I got a Stone Edge waiting for you right here. That coverage between Rock and Fighting is excellent. Not so good defensively speaking as far as typings go, but aggressively, like, holy crap. And then in Terrakion, actually I didn't talk about this with Urshifu either, and this will be a theme with Keldeo too, is all 3 of these Pokemon are very flexible. They can be setup sweepers. I love a bulk up Urshifu, because then you have that flexibility between clicking Wicked Blows and Close Combats and Sucker Punches for a bit of pseudo speed control. Terrakion is frequently scarfed on these sets. I've got a dual dance set here because it gives you a lot of flexibility versus what certain matchups. For example, against Mono Poison, Sword Dance is great, but Rock Polish is nearly useless. And if we're talking about against, mono, an aggressive Mono Electric team, then having that extra Rock Polish boost can be really handy in outspeeding them. And they're also frail on Mono Electric anyways. I don't need the Swords Dance boost. So if you saw my double dance video where I broke it down in more depth, you'll understand the idea. It's not necessarily you want a Swords Dance and then Rock Polish, because defensive typing is so bad that you're not going to get a chance to go for 2 boosts anyways. It's more so you pick and choose a situation, which is going to be more adequate in that spot. So I love this. Chopper Berry lets you get up one of those setup moves frequently, or even if you're against certain teams, you can tank 1 hit while you're sweeping, stuff like that. But yeah, great Scarfer, great Banded user. You can do Air Balloon here, you can do Life Orb here, you can do Lumberry here, so you can set up on a possible Scald. Lots of possibilities for this. And then finally, and also you can run Earthquake and Coverage and Poison Jab and Iron Head and all that stuff. But then finally, it's going to be Keldeo, because if you look at this array here, and in fact, if you look at, fighting types in general on Smogon, there's a lot of physical attackers. Let's talk about it. And having a special attacker, you know, let's say a max phys def Corviknight swaps in on me and I'm going, oh my god, I cannot break this thing for the life of me. Keldeo is going to be very useful. I chose choice specs in this one. Again, there's actually my Scarfer Zapdos Galar on this team, and it's actually frequently banded, so this is a little bit of a weird team for me. But Specs Keldeo hits really, really hard. I've even got Aura Sphere on here because Sacred Sword is normally good because it targets the base physical defense instead of the special defense, which is fun because that way, you know, you can surf on that physically defensive core that we talked about. You can still break a Blissey with the Sacred Sword, Sacred Sword here. But again, it's our only special attacker. It's my only choice for special fighting attack. Not to mention it's 100% accurate. Screw you, Focus Blast. I'm not relying on you. You know, this thing can Oko a max phys def Ferrothorn. It's really, really good. And then we also have the pivot ability with the flip turn, which I'm going to talk about more going into it, but that's fantastic. You know, if I'm against Mono Normal, for example, I might swap in my Keldeo on a Beware because Beware can tank hits from all these Pokemon here. And then the Beware's threatened out to go back into Blissey because Blissey will take the Aura Sphere. And then I flip turn on them. And then I'm resetting the whole situation all over again. I got Zapdos Galar in now and stuff like that. So having that extra pivot ability is really useful. You could opt to run Scald here or Scald and Hydro Pump, or you can do all that stuff. I just want a consistent heavy hitter and choice specs with my Keldeo, but it's no question to be great. And oh, sorry, another thing I meant to talk about with the special attacker aspect of it is that there is very few Pokemon on a mono fighting team that can swap into a Scald. It's a basic thing, but Talk Specs is so annoying because not only does it wall your fighting type attacks with its great physical defense and its poison typing, but also they go for a Scald afterwards, and a Scald burn cripples all of these mons, not this one. I also threw in Conkeldurr, weird Assault Vest Gut set because I also want another Scald swap in. But having Keldeo, who we don't care if they get Scald burn, it's honestly better than getting paralyzed or getting toxic. That's fine. That's really okay with us. So having that extra, you know, option for something to get burned, it can be very handy. So those are the main three I wanted to talk about before I talk about sort of the goal of mono fighting in general. And it's going to be very similar to your mono ghost or your mono dragon, which we've discussed before, or even if you go back to like bird spam back in Gen 6, it's kind of like this. I'm going to throw my fighting type attackers at you over and over and over again. Waves of offense. Zapdos Galar and Terrakion and Urshifu to try to wear down your fighting type counters. Because let's say you're using a bulky mono water and your only fighting resist is a Tapu Fini. Great. So I'm going to throw my Urshifu at you and I'll go for, let's say, 2 Wicked Blows. So now Tapu Fini's at like 40%. Now I'm free to just pop off with my Terrakion and Zapdos Galar and throw around these huge close combats that you can't wall anymore because your only answer to it has been worn down. It's very, very similar to the fact that, you know, we try to wear down dark types or normal types with our mono ghost team so that Spectrier can pop off. It's similar to trying to wear down steel and fairy types so our mono dragon team can pop off. It's the same kind of concept of you're just trying to spam the same offensive concept at them until you wear down your counters. However, I will say right now, we're about 8 minutes into the video here, I really struggle with mono fighting. I'd say only tied by mono normal is the type that I most have difficulty with. I've been playing it a ton lately to kind of prepare for this sort of series of videos I'm about to make right now, and I find it very difficult. And the main reason for that is this idea of a system of offense. And I talk about this all the time when I did like mono electric or mono rain or even mono grass. And that's the idea that it's very advantageous to have a system of offense that you can take advantage of, but your opponent cannot. And what I mean by that is, if I have an electric terrain up, great, all my electric moves are boosted by 30%. Or psychic terrain, great, now I'm immune to priority, which is useful, you know, if I've got a Scarf Tapu Lele that would be worried about Urshifu otherwise. I can do that, plus all my psychic moves are boosted. Having this system that your entire team takes advantage of, but not your opponent, that's like a net 30% boost in damage output in the mono psychic example there. It's super fantastic. Whereas these other types like fighting and these other types of offense, like fighting and dragon and ghost don't really have that. And on the one hand, while, you know, you're trying to wear down these counters similar to even mono electric, the difference is if I do wear down the ground types that mono electric would have trouble with, great, I'm pretty much good now because Raichu Alola and Regieleki are going to completely destroy you. That's it. Game over. If I wear down the counters, I win. Same goes for mono ghost. It is a near transcendent win con in a choice Scarf or even Specs or whatever Spectrier. If you have a Spectrier who's just sweeping, I would describe it as like an almost transcendent win con in that like it's a given that it will win the game if it's given the opportunity to win the game and the counters are removed. But you don't really have that with mono fighting. These are all 6 fantastic mons. I can't stress it enough. Great Pokemon. But they're not that sort of thing where like, oh, you know, Tapu Fini's gone? Bet, I win. That's it. You don't have that. And if we actually look up a type chart right here, type chart Pokemon, it's interesting how volatile these matchups can be as a result because you don't have that sort of offense to kind of bank on here. Okay, I don't want a type chart. I just want all of the Pokemon types. Sure, Pokemon. There we go. And it's in the way there. Sure. So if we look at fighting's matchups against some of these types here, I don't talk about matchups a lot so far because sometimes it can be a little bit oversimplistic and sometimes there's more to it than that, but I think it applies to mono fighting here because, well, it just will. So Mono Fairy, terrible matchup for mono fighting. That's an awful one. You have a terrible time trying to win that one. There's nothing you can even wear down, and for the most part. Dark, you destroy. You just have 6 close combat users. No one can really match up against that. Flying, a very tough one. It's actually, I think, better than Mono Fairy. And it depends, because if you're against an offensive one, that can almost be worse to an extent, because, like, let's say Hawlucha sets up on you. Hawlucha, I swear, 6-0s most mono fighting teams. It's crazy. So Hawlucha, you know, if they're on a offensive mono flying team, good luck. Even a defensive one, they're resisting. We're talking about trying to wear down your opponents fighting defensive things. Well, if there's 6 of them, then good luck. That's just a very difficult win condition. Sure, you've got Terrakion. Sure, you've got good alternate stabs, but you're just kind of behind. Bug is interesting because they resist your fighting type moves, but they're also offensive, but they take advantage of the web. So I don't think that's that great. Mono Poison, same thing. 6 defensive counters to your fighting type Pokemon. If you have certain Pokemon like a Banded Zapdos Galar, we famously saw during one of my tournaments, we saw that just destroy Mono Poison Stall. But for the most part, it's a great matchup against you. I really struggle with that one too. Mono Fighting, it's funny, you'd think it'd be a tie, but there's different types of Mono Fighting team. I ran against a Mono Fighting team with my own the other night that had a Buzzwole, which walls most fighting type Pokemon, and a Hawlucha, you know, the other one I was worried about, and I was like, I lose. Like, it's a Ditto and I lose. So Mono Fighting, I think, can be a tough one too. Normal, you destroy. One of the worst matchups in Monotype in general. I swear, normal versus fighting. Same with Dark. Terrible. Psychic, really rough. It depends how many Psychic Surge users they have, because otherwise you can lean on your Shifu. And, you know, if you ever want to make an argument for using a Choice Scarf or Shifu instead of a Banded or Bulk Up one like I often use, it is this matchup, because you can absolutely destroy people with just a 6-0 sweep with Wicked Blow. That's what her Shifu provides for you. Mono Ghost, I think that would normally be a bad one, because again, we're talking about those close combat swap-ins, but her Shifu is so dominant in that situation. And it's another reason why I really like Conkeldurr, because normally Urshifu can't quite 6-0, because let's say I'm going and they go, okay, Urshifu's got a Wicked Blow, they're going to 6-0 me with Wicked Blow. I'll go to, you know, my Spectrier or my Gengar and I'll Will-O-Wisp them. I've got an easy swap into my Conkeldurr then. And Conkeldurr's Assault Vest, and he's got Guts, and he can knock off, and he can just sweep you back. So I think that's a really good one. Dragon, I think, is very similar to Mono Fighting. I would call that pretty 50-50. Electric, I think it's bad, because Electric, a lot of it comes down to playing with Electric. It's this unbelievable, powerful offense that you just try to wear down the enemy ground types. And I hate to break it to you guys, there's not a lot of electric switch-ins on fighting at all. This team has 0, first of all. Your Assault Vest Conkeldurr is the best you get. Oh. Your Assault Vest Conkeldurr is the best you get, but otherwise there's nothing here. Nothing. And so I think it's a terrible matchup, because they are taking advantage of a system of offense that you cannot. And when they're, you know, in that offense, they're destroying you. And Raichu Alola is a psychic type with like ridiculous speed stats when they're using Surge Surfer, all that stuff. It's Tapu Koko, terrible matchup too. So I think Electric is a arguably worse matchup than like Mono Fairy almost. Maybe I want to go that far, but like you can see what I'm talking about, where it's like it's very bad. Mono Ice, you know, I think there's actually Mono Ice isn't as bad as you might think, but still Mono Fighting is definitely quite advantage there. Steel, if you're running Mono Fighting, it's probably because you're tired of all these Steel type Pokemon running into you. You pretty easily handle them. Again, Urshifu in particular can handle the Aegis Slash quite easily too. Rock, again, one of the worst matchups you can possibly have. Ground, I have more convoluted opinions on ground versus fighting, but let's just say it's a tie here. Grass, they can take advantage of a system of offense you cannot, but still I want to say it's pretty tie-ish. Fire, again, you have no fire type swap-ins. They're just smoking you with these big fire type attacks, so I don't love that one either. You're kind of going for blow with them there. And water, I think, is low-key like a terrible matchup for Mono Fighting, because if they're defensive, they probably have a Toxapex and a Tapu Fini, which, like, those are 2 brutal counters for you to deal with. You kind of think it through. You think, okay, I get my Urshifu in, and it's against the Swampert. That's great. It's 2 KO. They swap to their Tapu Fini. Tapu Fini comes in. You're doing 30% once leftovers are totaled. They force you back out. Who's you swapping for a Moonblast from Tapu Fini? Even Cobalion is getting 2 KO by a Moonblast. So you just have to sack them on, essentially. So you sack Pokemon to Tapu Fini. You go, okay. Well, now I'll try to break it with a whatever. Let's say a Zapdos Galar with a Brave Bird. not really cutting it. And then even then they could probably swap out from there to a different matchup like Toxapex, so you can handle the Brave Bird as long as it's scarfed. And there's all, I'm getting too into it, but I think the against bulky water is really, really rough. And it's even worse against mono rainwater, because then again, what is your swap in for Specs Hurricane Kingdra, for a Barraskewda with Liquidation? Because Barraskewda Liquidation 2-hit KOs even Keldeo. So you have no swap in for that either. Even if you had like a water type resist like a Komodo, it's still not great. Or even Virizion, it's still not great. You're still taking like 2 or 3 hits, and that doesn't help again with that Kingdra Hurricaning on you. There's no swap in even if you have a resist for Surging Strikes in the rain. It's a bad one. But the point is, if I look at this spread here, it sounds like I'm trying to dog on mono fighting. I'm like, look at all these terrible matchups it has. That's not my point. I think it's actually fine. I think it's a very viable typing for you to use. That's not what I want you to have the takeaway here. My point is that a lot of these matchups are just extremely lopsided. Like mono electric, I think is as bad as mono normal is, except the flip side. I think that mono psychic is really, really tough to deal with, but by the same token, so is mono fighting versus mono steel. So it feels almost like every time you log into a game with mono fighting, you're just due for these terrible, like lopsided matchups that are over in 12 turns. It's really weird. So I was probably way too long to spend on that topic there, but I just want to get that across, this idea of that things are lopsided, and it's more than it appears. But for all that talk, we talked about the basics of mono fighting, why it's very, very volatile in a sense that you're kind of sweeping or getting swept. We talked about the importance of Urshifu, Terrakion, Keldeo. I even touched on Zapdos Galar. Zapdos Galar, I don't think it's any secret why it's good. Fighting and flying is another amazing, amazing combination. Plus it gives you a ground type swap in. Plus it's a Defiant, so they can't defog on you. I touched a little bit on why I like this Conkeldurr. This last slot, the 6th slot, you can really do almost anything here you want. You can do a Howlucha. You could do a Toxicroak if you're really worried about the Toxapex matchup that I mentioned. I'm going through the modability viability here. Buzzwole's fantastic, fantastic defensive threat. You could have Heracross. Heracross is very good. Even these 3 in the D rank, it seems like it'd be awful if it's D rank, but I guarantee you can make it work for sure. Again, I prefer Conkeldurr because it gives you some sort of tanky swap, and I talked about how there's not much defensive utility to this team. Conkeldurr gives you like a measure of it. And again, it really helps with that mono ghost matchup. And you can even do something where, let's say it's a Scarf Tapu Lele, which normally destroys this team on Psychic or Fairy, whatever. If I can get in my Conkeldurr and get off a knockoff, then I've got a shot to win, you know? Because it can take a Scarf Moonblast with Assault Vest. Not Psychic, but a Moonblast. So that's why I like that Conkeldurr in that position, personally speaking. But all that, I haven't talked about this last Pokemon here. And that's because I think it's very key to understanding mono fighting in general. And I've got a bit of an idea for that, where let's host not a TED Talk, but maybe a game show. Not quite a game show, maybe a show of excitement, of matchmaking. Let's do the hit series, Let's Make a Match. Yes, thank you for joining me, everyone, for the hit show, Let's Make a Match. I have you, a young, eager, potential mono fighting trainer, and all I want is to set you up with the ultimate rocker possible to make your fighting team necessary. Because let's be honest, having a rocker that's powerful and can get up rocks consistently is one of the most important things you can have on a mono fighting playstyle. You so desperately need to sweep in order to win the game that having a consistent 12% chip on your opponents is going to be so critical. And it's also going to stop defensive teams from swapping around on you constantly getting good matchups, because they're taking a net 12% at least every time they do those swaps. In addition, there's so many key matchups. Like for example, we talked about the Tapu Fini earlier. I wasn't ready to do the game show yet. Let's wrap for a second here. I talked about the Tapu Fini earlier. Let's say you get a Brox. Tapu Fini comes in. Now they're at like 88%. And instead of Wicked Blowing with your Shifu, you U-turn out and you do 20%. That's great. Now you send in some sort of thing to threaten out the Tapu Fini, like a Cobalion, for example. And the Tapu Fini's forced out. And then you reset that situation with a Volt Switch later on down the road. And now, all told, from the first round of rocks and the second round of rocks, that's when they come in, plus the U-turn, they're looking at like 60-some%. All of a sudden, after that one little scenario where you do the U-turn with the double entry of rocks to Tapu Fini, Urshifu can now 2-hit KO with Wicked Blow. Just by doing that little U-turn sequence once, you can Wicked Blow for 2-hit KO. So it's situations like that where rocks are way more important than you think, and there's such a lifeblood of making it work because you have all these ranges that like aren't attainable through normal means, but you can when you have rocks up. But enough about that. I'm a matchmaker. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a TED talker. Today, I want to teach you guys and make a match with these prospective Pokemon that I have found for you today with my own grievous hard work here. First up, we have Gentleman, or not Gentleman, that's kind of weird. We have Pokemon number 1 here. Who knows what it could be? You can also do Komodo with your rocker. There's literally only 3 mono fighting rockers you can have between Komodo and, actually, I don't want to reveal who these other 2 mons are, but Komodo is not really going to work. If you're going to have it in your team, it's probably as another special attacker to support Komodo with a setup set or something like that. As a rocker, doesn't really bring much to the table that other mono fighting Pokemon don't bring. Like as a whole, maybe Komodo does have good defenses and does have some resistances, but you can shore that up with other Pokemon around your team. It's really best as a sweeper if you're going to have it on your team, so it's not a great rocker. So 2 potential matches for you. We have Curtain 1 here, and we have... Oh, did it freeze? No, it didn't. And we have Curtain 2 here. There we go. So you have no idea who's behind these curtains, I'm sure. But I just want to describe these 2 Pokemon to you, and I want you, my audience, to decide which seems like the rocker for you. So behind curtain number 1 here, we have a rocker with a rock fighting typing. Not the best defensively, great offensively, but if I want a reliable rocker who I can believe is going to get up these stealth rocks for me time and time again, maybe not just every game, but also multiple times a game. Maybe there's a Mantine who's swapping in and defogging these for me. I need a rocker who I can rely on at the end of the day to keep those rocks up. So I don't know about a rock fighting type, but a steel fighting type. Oh, Pokemon number 2 behind this curtain is got a steel fighting typing. That's interesting, isn't it? We're talking about neutrality to fairy. We're talking about neutrality to flying. We're talking about neutrality to psychic. It completely shores up all of fighting's big weaknesses right there. All 3. That's fantastic. But it's not going to take a lot of hits. You know, you're not swapping into Tapu Fini Moonblast at all. It's going to smoke anyone. Neutrality is not going to cut it in that situation. You want immunity or like a resist, which you're not going to find on a mono fighting, of course. But it does give you something. For example, talk about that Tapu Fini earlier. You can probably take, if it's not too invested, you take a Draining Kiss, and then you can threaten that with Iron Heads and force it back out. Iron Heads is going to be useful in general. But that's enough about that. Let's talk about support, because if you're a rocker, maybe you can actually help support our team a little bit. Maybe offer a little bit of speed control, dare I say. Well, first of all, let's talk about Pokemon number 1 behind this curtain. What do you offer for speed control? Well, Pokemon number 1 offers Rock Tomb. And Rock Tomb is interesting because it is stab, as we noted. It's going to hit pretty hard. It is still going to intuit KO, your average Tornadus, for example. But it also drops the speed. So let's say that Tornadus is swapping in on you. It's trying to force you back out with a Focus Blast or a Hurricane or whatever. You do the Rock Tomb, and you're guaranteed to 2-hit KO afterwards. That's pretty exciting. However, what do we see with Pokemon number 2 here? Thunder Wave. Now, Thunder Wave is a status, or Paralyzation rather, is a status that you don't see too much, and I think it's an interesting one because if we're talking about what we want most for a mono fighting team, I think Paralysis is actually much more beneficial than you'd think, because Toxic, that takes several turns per day to get going. You can't hit some of the big mons that would wall you, like a Toxapex or a Tapu Fini, because they're immune to Toxic essentially with abilities and all that stuff. I'm not going to get into it, but Paralysis can actually be useful against those walls because you have a chance to interrupt one of their turns. A 30% chance of them not being able to get off a move on you is fantastic. And in the case of that Tapu Fini we mentioned, perhaps then with that Paralyze, it's slowed to the point that your Conkeldurr can then get 40% off on it with a Earthquake or something like that. That's pretty useful. But not to mention, it's also the even range of some of these useful things. So let's say that you're against a Dragapult, and I Thunder Wave that Dragapult. Now all of a sudden, all my Pokemon with great speed tiers can outspeed it and kill it. So take these Pokemon that are threatening, even a Dragonite setting up on you, right? Dragonite setting up on me with a Dragon Dance. And I can't stop them from Dragon Dancing at least once. They have multi-scale. They're going to take at least one hit no matter what. What the hell am I going to do? Well, great. You Thunder Wave, and now all of a sudden I can swap to my Urshifu, let's say, with the Volt Switch, for example. Multi-Steel's broken. It's slower than my Urshifu, still net here. Maybe they got off an extreme speed. That's not really a big threat at this point in the game. And I can still secure the kill with a Wicked Blow. That's incredibly useful. And speaking of Volt Switch, oh my gosh, Volt Switch. So hey, Pokemon number 1 here. What do you have in terms of pivots? Because we're running a very offensive team here. And I need to make sure I secure these good matchups as well as possible, Pokemon 1. How can you secure that for me? How can you take care of these other... Look, this isn't just about me. It's about the rest of the team here. We got Pokemon like Keldeo. We want to get in good opportunities for it to set in. Because I don't want to switch to Keldeo like raw on Corviknight, for example, because then it's taking a Brave Bird free. I want to get a good chance to swap in if possible. So what can you do for that? Nothing? No pivot moves at all? Not on a team that is so Volt turn reliant like ours, where we've got U-turn on our Shifu, flip turn on Keldeo. We have U-turn on Zapdos Galar. We are constantly pivoting in and out, trying to force these good matchups with Stealth Rocks. You're trying to let the Stealth Rocks accumulate, where you go, oh crap, they got Zapdos Galar in. I gotta go to my Toxapex. Oh crap, now they U-turned on me, and then they got the Keldeo or the Conkeldurr or the Urshifu in. Crap, now I gotta go to like my Weezing Galar. Okay, I'll go to that. And then now you're thinking all this chip damage over and over. So having a pivot move is gonna be really useful. And whoever you are, Pokemon number 1 here, I'm afraid that might not cut it. That's having no pivot move. I mean, I see you've got Taunt there, but so does Pokemon number 2 here. And Pokemon number 2 also has Volt Switch, which look, it's no U-turn, but it is handy. And let's say you're in a lead matchup situation against a Pelipper, then that's gonna help you do massive damage to a Pelipper if you get up against Mono Water, for example, or even Mono Flying. Mono Flying is a terrible matchup. And it's even more important if you're against Mono Flying that you get up these Stealth Rocks. And so being able to actually chip it and threaten them with a combination of Thunder Wave and Volt Switch, that's really, really potent. But then finally, if we're talking about raw defenses here, Pokemon number 2, and finally, if we're talking about defenses here, Pokemon number 1 here has solid, 90-90 bulk, which is good, but with that rock fighting typing isn't really going to cut it. Whereas we got Pokemon number 2 here as our second rocker. Again, we don't want Rock Chip just once. We want it multiple times. We want it pivoting in and out. This is a utility mon. When we're talking about Iron Head, acting as that Steel type resistance for to shore up all these other Pokemon we've got. We're talking about the spreading status and speed control. We're talking about getting hazards up frequently. We're talking about pivot opportunities for the rest of our team. Defenses are important. And this is a Pokemon that's defenses even greater than a Tyranitar. We're talking about like, I think 100 HP and 129 physical defense. That's incredibly strong defensively speaking. This thing is taking a lot of hits. Plus, even beyond the matchups that fighting is weak against grass and poison and bug and rock, this is going to be a useful resist. And actually, speaking of rock, this is a 4 times resistance to Stealth Rocks. So if our opponent gets up Stealth Rocks, this Pokemon right here is still swapping in every time and taking the least amount of damage you can take from Stealth Rocks. That is potent. And so it has other moves you can use too, like Close Combat, Taunt, and stuff like that. But clearly, if you want a rocker for your team, it seems like this mon is just outmatched. With all that said, let's take a peek behind the curtain here. Who do we have behind here? First is going to be Terrakion. Terrakion, look, you're a great Pokemon. You're the best Pokemon you can have in mono fighting. But stick to the fighting. Stick to the offense. That's where we want you. But when it comes to setting up rocks, that's like sometimes you see Stealth Rock Terrakion, and all they can think is like, okay, Stealth Rocks is great on Terrakion, but that is 1 less Sword Stance, 1 less Rock Polish, 1 less Earthquake or Poison Jab, or Mega Horn, or Quick Attack, or whatever, right? Terrakion's so good at offense, why would you limit it? Why are you trying to put a Terrakion into a Cobalion-shaped hole here? It doesn't work. Cobalion's one of the most important Pokemon in your mono fighting team. I would almost argue that it's more important than some of the Pokemon we saw in the S tier in the viability rankings. I think it is so good. Keeping up rocks consistently with a Pokemon this reliable on defense is actually unbelievable. My only problem with Cobalion is that it doesn't have recovery, if anything, because it has to do so much for your team. It has to speed control, it has to pivot. It's your only Steel type. It has to get rocks up. It's an Iron Head user, which is super useful for beating Fairy types. It has so much to do that it can't always do it all in one game. It has too much responsibility. So I think it's almost better than, we talk about Urshifu and Keldeo and Terrakion. I don't know. Maybe even really Keldeo? No. I don't know. I'm not going to make that argument. The point is, those 3 we talked about as the most important types of mono fighting are incredible, but Cobalion deserves respect, at least as an honorary mention, because it is so good, and I'm never leaving my team builder without this thing. With all that said, I hope I was able to make a happy match for you all. I hope you found the Cobalion rocker of your dreams. I hope it slots in with your team here, but my job here is done. Let's hit the ladder, why don't we? And to hit the ladder, it's not gonna cut it, is it? So we can do better. Let's power up is what we gotta do. Let's power up. Carefully take off my pants, because this is actually nice pants. Let's power up. This is why you guys can't give me a week of prep. I'll show up way too ready. Let's play some damn Pokemon Showdown. Let's get into it. Let's get hyped up. This wig really hurts. So let's go. Let's get it. Let's get a win. High ladder with mono fighting. I don't care. Give me your mono psychic. I don't care. Mono bug. Okay, mono bug can be a little bit interesting. Let's see how we manage here. Right off the bat, I think we're very likely to see that Shuckle there. In terms of things that could prevent that, it's hard to say no to 2 serves from Keldeo here. It's going to break just about better than anything else here. Super effective, of course. And there's no swapping. They might predict that. Perhaps go to their... Oh, man, they're going to have a really hard time with Keldeo. If you want a good showcase for why Keldeo can be good, this is the one here. And serve is going to hit just hard enough as is. No, this is a little bit too plunging of a neckline, even for Goku here. Hold on a second. They're going to get webs. So webs... I almost think that Bug is advantage in this matchup, honestly, because they do get the advantage of the webs. They also get the advantage of resisting our fighting type attacks. That's 6 Pokemon that resist close combats. That's kind of rough. Yes, you've got Terrakion, but Terrakion's not that useful when it's outsped. I don't love it. Oh, I know this is frustrating because I've fought this matchup before, and I should be safe to surf here, because if they bullet punch, like, what do I care, right? But I've also played against Mono Bug where they have a dual wing beat Scizor, and I lost because of this exact situation right here. So I'm very torn. Very, very, very torn. I think Cobalion is pretty safe right now. We just gas it up for so long, but this is probably the play here. 22%, we'll take it. Do I take the rocks? Do I take the Volt Switch into something else? I think we gotta take the rocks. It's Life Orbs. They might Swords Dance right now. They aren't faster, at least. They superpower instead. Crazy coverage. You don't often see that. But that brings them right within range of that defense drop to die to a Zapdos Galar right now. And so I'm not actually going to say that Mono Bug is favoring against Mono Rock because of this Mono right here. As is so often the case of Monotype, where you go, oh, that should be bad because of X, Y, and Z, but you go, yeah, you know, Mono Ghost should be bad. They resist our fighting type attacks. But yeah, we got our Shifu. Same's going to happen right here. You know what? I appreciate that Bug types resist my Pokemon, but I got Zapdos Galar. It's that simple. It's that simple. Heracross gonna come in right now. Looks like they're scarfed, like the way they're bringing it in right now. But we outspeed even a scarf Heracross, so I think they're trying to wear it down, like have our Zapdos Galar take too much chip here. So I talked about we don't have a transcendent win condition with fighting like you would with other types, and I do stand by that. Are we in bullet punch range already? That'd be crazy. Sorry, I need to think of this thought. I do stand by that you don't have a Transcendent Wing Con. Zapdos Galar is very close, I think. Either Banded or Scarf. It's putting in so much work. You can even run Bulk Up on it. It's the same with, you know, Urshifu and Terrakion and Keldeo. Or you can run all kinds of sets on it. However, the problem is that unlike Shadow Ball, which you just spam, you get even stronger as it goes on. Zapdos, we got 2 Pokemon out of the way. 2 pretty unimportant Pokemon. Actually, Buzzball's really important, but still. We got 2 Pokemon out of the way. And now we're in range to get Life Orb killed. Or Bullet Punch Life Orb. Revenge killed, right? So your win condition actually gets weaker the more you go. It's kind of unfortunate. I think I will... Keldeo's still very, very useful. Scallopy can definitely win. Definitely can win. I'm glad we can have the Urshifu around. This might be the best time for Urshifu to come in, because I'll come in on this Bullet Punch and tank it, and then Sucker Punch afterwards. If they Swords Dance on the Sucker Punch, I think that's something I'm prepared to take here. It's 50-50. I think their last move is definitely Swords Dance. They can predict the Sucker Punch here. But I like this play. If we get this off, we're in a good spot where Conkeldurr can revenge kill. If I'm wrong, they get a free Swords Dance on us, like several, actually. But we'll try it. They might actually outspeed us, too. Do they outspeed us? Probably, yeah. They probably outspeed us with the webs up. So they're thinking about it. They're really, really thinking about it here. The way I went to it, I think I'm safe to go for a Sucker Punch here. If I were them, I would not be Swords Dancing here. It's the correct play, obviously, in this situation. But if I were them, I think that this is just a sack on Urshifu. And yeah, we get that off. So they're going to kill themselves there. That's great. Zapdos Galar looking fantastic. However, there's a free setup. That's either a free Swords Dance on Scolipede or a free Quiver Dance on Volcarona right now. Because they should be calculating the Sucker Punch and going, was that thing banded? And the answer is yes, of course. So I think I'll go to... I mean, this is a good point for Conkeldurr, I guess. But don't do so much damage with Earthquake is kind of my beef with that. Speed type with Zapdos Galar, I could go to that. I think I'll do Keldeo here. Yeah. It's a Fiery Dance for not so much. That is going to be a Surf for me. This will be a 2 at KO, if not an Oko. Not quite an Oko, not quite an Oko. Bill Psychic, okay, they did have that coverage, good for them. Are they in range for a Mach Punch kill here? I don't know. The fact that they had that is kind of scary. I'm gonna be dumb and go for this. They'll probably fiery dance right here. Oh really? They're gonna give it to us. Nice. Okay, so we take one there, and that's a good fighting showcase, isn't it? I'm down to leave it like that. Zapdos Galar gonna finish it. GG. Quick game. I promise I'll have another one uploaded tomorrow. I didn't get this Goku out for nothing here. Probably gonna record one right now. But the video's been long enough. We talked about all kinds of things. I think I really broke down this playstyle and how it works in general. If you have any questions, be sure to hit me up either here or on my Discord or on Twitter or wherever. But thanks you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for the next video, which is going to be coming out tomorrow. And I'll catch you next time. Take it easy.